Hello and welcome. My name is Tyler and I will be teaching you how to successfully plan and execute a weekend trip while you're abroad, which is where I am right now. And I have 5 key steps that you want to follow. Step 1 is to pick a place. Pretty obvious. Step 2 is to find some travel buddies, some adventure buddies. Find some friends. Step 3 is to pick a central point, which I will explain. Central point. And step 4, find accommodations, of course. Finally, step 5 is routes and details. Routes plus details. Or activities. Alright, let me explain. Step 1 is to pick a place, very, very broad. You're going to start with picking a country you want to go to. That could be Italy, Germany, France. Very, very broad, that's the first step. Step 2 is to find some friends, because what's a travel experience if not with, spent with people that make it way more meaningful. These could be, it's always easy to travel with old friends. They could be old friends, but I would recommend trying to find some new friends as well. Maybe people you meet at lunch, people you meet out in the city, people you meet at school, because I think going on a trip with people you just met can be kind of scary, but it can also be super, super rewarding, I found. Step 3, we have picking a central point. That's very important. My personal philosophy is that when you go visit somewhere, especially when you have a very limited time abroad, it's important to see as much as you possibly can versus just staying in one place the entire time. So picking a central location like a city, and then finding day trips you can go to around, and then going, say like you go point A is your central point, that's where you get your accommodations, and then you can go one day trip here, one day trip there, one day trip there, and then you have your central point, so you're not going all over the place and spending too much time traveling. Step 4, finding accommodations. Number 1 is finding a cheap accommodation. Number 2 is finding an accommodation that is close to a city center where you're staying, because although public transportation can be good, you don't want to be walking, an hour just to get to dinner every night. So finding typically a hostel is what I like to go with. Airbnbs can be a little on the cheap, more on the expensive side. So I like to go with a good old hostel. It gives you everything you need. You got a bed. Might not be the most comfortable bed, but you got a bed. You got a shower. You might even have a little bit of breakfast, lunch and dinner. You might have food included as well. So that's accommodations. And 5, the most important step, is routes and details. Although it's fun to leave some free time open, you also want to be very pragmatic in a sense to make sure that you have that you're able to fully live up the experience on a single weekend trip. Because even though it's a single weekend, if you kind of go to a place without any plan, you could just get there and be like, oh, let's look on TripAdvisor, and then you're sitting there, you've seen, say, the Eiffel Tower, and then you're like, well, I don't really know where to go if I want to see stuff that's off the beaten path, so you got to plan that. All right, and now I have a little example that I'd like to share. So this past weekend, my roommate and I did a very exciting trip that I will go through the 5 steps with. And we used these 5 steps, and it ended up being by far the best trip we've done, and it wasn't even necessarily the coolest place that we went to. So step 1, we picked a place. Italy was the place that we're staying in. That's where I'm going abroad right now. The friends, so I went with my roommate, who I knew really well, and then we also found a guy from USF who we met about a week ago, and we didn't know him too well, so we were kind of a little weird to reach out, but we reached out, and he was super down to go, and we ended up getting super close with him, and now I consider him a friend, and we're going to travel a little bit more in the future, so it ended up really paying off. Picking a central point, that was the 3rd step. We went, so right now I'm in Florence. We took a train up to Milan, which is in the city center, exactly between the 2 hikes we did. So the city center was here, and then we did a hike here one day, came back, did a hike here one day, came back, and then went back. So it worked perfectly having that central point versus if we were over at point C and then had to go all the way to point B over here, then back to point, it would just be too complicated. So getting that city center is very important. And then getting accommodations, you guessed it, we got a hostel and it worked out perfectly. The beds were not the most comfortable. One of us didn't have a pillow, but that was okay. We only paid $15 a night, and basically all we did was sleep there, so it was perfect. And we were right next to the city center, so we were able to go see, in the city that we were in, which is Milan, we were able to see a bunch of amazing stuff. And routes and details, most important. So we took a train. It's important to take, if you have Friday off, you take a train Thursday night so that you can get 2 full days on Friday and Saturday, and then your travel day back is Sunday afternoon. So we came in on Thursday night, went right to bed so we could be super energized for getting up early on Friday morning, went up to a beautiful lake called Lake Como and did a hike, and we had planned, so we were on a lake, which is Lake Como, and there's a bunch of cities around the lake. So we did a hike across half the lake, took a boat to a different city, and then finally we took another boat for sunset to a different city, and we planned the boats. We didn't plan everything in between, but we had the boats planned, so that allowed us to kind of, have some sort of structure, which really helped a lot. And then the second day, we came back to Milan, which was our central point, and we explored the city that day, which we had about 5 things planned out, and then some free time as well scheduled in. So what I was saying, free time is totally fine, but having the free time scheduled in makes it less stressful, if that makes sense. And then the third day, we went from Milan to our hike in Como, back to Milan. And the third day, we did an incredible hike that was, you were right along the ridgeline of a mountain range, and then the coast was right next to us. We literally had the best of both worlds, beach and mountains. It was the most beautiful hike I've ever done in my life. But that was incredible, and yeah. And then we headed back on Sunday night, very, very tired, slept the entire train ride back, but even though it was a little bit more off the beaten path, we didn't go to Paris or Germany or Rome, which we had gone to. That ended up being my favorite by far. And then the overall tips and tricks, I would say plan things to keep it cheap, plan things far in advance. And as amazing as cities can be, I think seeing the nature of different places, I didn't realize that Italy has so much beautiful nature to offer. Like going to the big cities is great, but all I needed was 1 day really. And then we checked off everything there was to see. So I think having at least a 50-50 split of seeing the nature of a place and seeing the cities of a place really allows you to get the best sense for what the place is like. And I mean, I love the outdoors, so seeing the nature part of Italy was a huge bonus. Might even have been better than the city, if I say so myself. But okay, I'm sorry that was a little bit long, but thank you so much.